Hey everyone, it's Trombone here, uh, host of the most forgettable YouTube series on YouTube, This Week in Bronze. But what I wanted to do, because there has been some call for it, and in my channel that's a large call because small call is the only call, um, is kind of talk about Magic the Gathering and how to play it. I released a couple of videos now on things that I play in Magic the Gathering and things that have happened. But if you're brand new and I just threw you into the Magic scene with those videos and you're just a League player, this is kind of an introduction to the game and how it works. So you're going to start with a deck, and it has a minimum of 60 cards. This is not 60 cards. I picked up a handful of cards. You're going to start the game by having 7 cards from your deck in your hand to start. You're going to choose who goes first because it's a turn-based game, and you're going to go from there. That's the essentials. Another big essential is you're going to start with 20 life points, and you're going to want to get your opponent, who also starts at 20 life points, to 0 life points. That's the easiest way to win. That's the only way to win for as far as we're concerned. I don't want to get too much into deck building. There's a lot of places online, and Wizards of the Coast, the company that makes Magic the Gathering, have built plenty of decks for new players to play. I'm not going to get too much into that. If you want to see something like that in the future, feel free to comment. If you like this video and where it's going, feel free to like and subscribe. Anyways, we're going to talk about what happens after you have your 7 cards in your hand and you are playing Magic the Gathering. Every game is going to start with one person because, like I said, multiplayer game. It's turn-based, so your turn is going to start with you after the first turn untapping anything that you have tapped. We'll cover that a little bit later. And then anything that happens on the upkeep by another spell that you have played happening, and then you're going to draw a card. And this is on the first turn, every other turn, where the game really begins. So you're going to look at your hand and notice that you have a land in it. Now, land comes in beautiful 5 colors, and you're going to want to choose a color based on the colors that you have in your deck. These are your main way of playing anything that you want to play in this game. Lands are one of the 4 major card types that I like to cover, the way I like to explain it. They come in blue, white, red, black, and green. Green being my favorite color. So that's the 5 lovely colors that they come in. You see this one looks a little different. It's a full art land as opposed to a regular land. So lands are essential to this game because, like I said, they do allow you to play anything else in your hand. You can only play 1 per turn. So you're going to play your 1 per turn. You're going to lay it down. And let's say you have something that you want to play for 1. Let's say it's this. It's a sorcery card. We'll cover those a little bit later. But essentially, you're going to convert this land into a mana by tapping it. That's how you tap it. And then it's going to produce 1 mana of green because it's a forest, so it produces green that you can use. All lands in themselves are colorless, but they produce colored mana. It's going to produce a green colored mana, which you can then use to play this spell. And as you move on in the game, it's going to, involve more mana. You're going to have more than things that just cost 1. So you're going to tap multiple lands to play a certain card, such as this one, or more commonly, a creature like this one. Now, there's a couple different parts to the card to tell them apart. The first one being the creature name, which is actually on this side. So it tells you that it's a creature, what kind of creature it is, and that's it. That tells you the kind of card that it is. Right above that is right above that is the name. It's going to be the name. You can have 4 of this card in your deck. And then you're going to have the mana cost. Again, this one has a 2 and a green, so that means you can tap 2 of any color and that 1 green that we talked about earlier, and then you can play this card. Again, moving into creatures, getting your opponent's life points down, this is going to be the main way to do it. with creatures. So it has two numbers, which I'm covering up, two numbers separated by a dash. The first one is going to be how hard that creature is going to hit, how much damage it's going to do to anything that it hits, whether it be a player, another creature that your opponent chooses to block with, anything it's going to do damage to, that's how it's going to do damage. The second number is actually its defensive number. That's how much damage that creature can take before it dies. When you do damage in combat, which is a step to this game after you play some of your spells, then that damage is dealt simultaneously. So if you have a 2/2, which means it hits for 2 and it can take 2 up against a 2-2, then they're going to trade. They're going to deal 2 damage to each other and simultaneously deal that damage and die. Now there's some keywords that circumvent that, but the game at its basics is that's how that interaction is going to go down between creatures. So if you're hitting a player, player's not going to hit back. Only creatures are going to hit creatures. Again, basic terms. So that's creatures. That's how they work. That's a little bit about how combat works. You're also going to have 2 other types of cards besides lands and creatures that we've already talked about, and those are going to be enchantments and instants and sorceries, which you can't read. I don't know why I'm showing them. Maybe because I like to fidget. Whatever. So enchantments are going to do something. They're going to stay on the field. You're going to spend that mana just like you would for a creature or any other kind of thing that has a mana cost. And you're going to play them. It's going to stay on the field. It's either going to give a buff to a creature, which is an enchantment - aura, or it's just going to stay on your field and give your field a buff. So that's going to stay. It doesn't have a shelf life. It doesn't go away unless it's destroyed. Kind of like a creature. And that buff is going to remain in effect as long as that enchantment is on the field. That's enchantments. Instants and sorceries are similar to enchantments in the fact that they're going to do something when you play them. You're going to tap that mana to play them. You're going to then do what that card says, whether it be deal 3 damage to this, or draw this many cards, or you get the point. There's a lot of different things that they can do. I roped them all into one because they're basically the same card. It just depends on the timing that you can play them. We talked about the main phases. You can play your sorceries in the phase before combat and the phase after combat, just like creatures. And enchantments. Instants you can play at any time, on your opponent's turn, on your turn, basically any time for a little bit of deeper interaction. I feel free to ask someone that has played Magic for a while. They'll tell you exactly when you should play certain instants and when you can or should not. Now, for those to happen, you do have to have legal targets. Unlike an enchantment, unless it's an aura, you need to attach to a creature. But if it's an enchantment, it doesn't need any legal targets. If you play an instant or a sorcery, the thing that it has you do, it has to have a target so it can actually happen. You can't just play it with no targets, which who would want to, but there's certain cards. Anyway, they're going to do what they have to do, but as long as they have a target to do what they have to do. Instants you can play at any time. Sorceries, enchantments, and creatures you can play on the phase before combat on your turn, and the phase after combat on your turn. And then your turn is essentially over after that one. But it's after you draw, and I would encourage you to play a land first, but you don't have to. You can play lands in those phases too. That is the 4 main card types, and how you kind of go about playing Magic the Gathering. Again, you want your opponent's life total to reach 0. That's the most basic way, and that's an idea of how the game is going to work. Not very in-depth. Again, I wanted to keep it as basic as possible. Maybe you just play League and you heard me talking about Magic, it piqued your interest. That's a very introductory guide on how to play Magic the Gathering. And I think that just about concludes my video. One last little cheese, I guess, is unlike League, you can't just play Korean cards and win the game, because Korean cards do the same as English cards. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Remember that the AMA is coming out, so you can feel free to comment any questions you have. I read all of them, So no matter where you comment them, I will rope them into the AMA. Otherwise, you can feel free to tweet me at tromboneguy5555 on Twitter, and I will create a video Friday. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. If you're a League player, especially, because this is a second hobby of mine, I really enjoy playing it, and I hope you learned something. Sorry to those Magic players out there. Hopefully you got a little bit of laughing at me trying to explain the game you love. Anyway, thank you all, and until next time, have a good one.